Welcome, everyone, and thank you again, Dorothy, for joining every Tuesday. Great to see you again, and love the rings that you have on at the moment as well, I must say. I'm a big fan of rings. I got this, which you may have seen in Peru. But we're not here to talk about rings. We're here to talk about burnout boundaries, or boundaries in general, and how you can stop people-pleasing now. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, Dorothy and I spoke about perfectionism, progress over perfection. That's one of the 3 P's I mentioned. The second P is people pleasing, which actually 2 P's, people pleasing. But yeah, we spoke about perfectionism. We're going to speak about people pleasing, which is a tendency a lot of people have, how you can set boundaries and say no. So Dorothy, you want to say anything before you ask a question?
No, just it's great to see you again, Alex. Great to see everyone. Yeah, please do comment. It's good to get live questions in from people as we go. So
Yeah, comment. Yeah, thanks, Dorothy. Comment, right, say something, Dorothy will read them out. But Dorothy, I'll leave the first question to you.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Alex. So talking about people pleasing, I think it would be helpful if you just sort of explained people pleasing to us, kind of maybe gave us an example of what does people pleasing look like? How can we understand if others or if we ourselves are people pleasing?
Yeah, 100%. Great question. So, people pleasing is a way of seeking validation, validation. And why do we seek validation? Well, I can explain from my own experience and experience of some of my clients. It's because we don't feel that love and validation inside ourselves for ourselves. For me, that was because of, trauma, bullying, abuse, neglect, all of these kind of things. And I guess the first people I wanted to please, and I guess it was natural for many children, were my parents. And actually, what I did is I was seeking what's called positive and negative validation. Positive validation and people pleasing are things like, oh, if you do good, like get good grades or eat your vegetables, you're going to get a pat on the back or a rub on the head. Like, well done, Alex, But then there's negative validation, which is what I practice more often. And this involved, going against other people's boundaries and expectations, particularly those in authority, like my parents and teachers. For example, I never did my homework. I literally never did any piece of homework from the age of 5 through to 16, 17 years old, until there was actually an incident. I remember this vividly. I made an early school in Reading. Dorothy and I, we both went there. I didn't have a great time. I'm not sure about you, but I'll be honest, I did not have a great time at Maiden Early School whatsoever. And 16 years old or 17 years old, AS levels, August 2008. We were collecting out AS level results, which for those of you internationally in Peru, the US, or wherever, that's like the year before you go to university. Take 2 sets of exams when you're 16, 17 and 17, 18. One's called AS levels, the other are A levels. I took 4 subjects, and many do. Got my grades August 2008, and my parents were the only ones standing outside the glass walls of the sixth form school where you get the envelope. And I looked at the envelope, the results. It was C, D's, and E's, and 1 C, 2 D's, 1 E. Same results my older brother Doran got. Actually, went outside and I told my parents, and they were so disappointed in me. I remember being in the car. They were like, "Alex, we thought you were intelligent." They didn't say you are intelligent. They said we thought you were intelligent. And that we would expect this from Doran. We didn't even expect him to go to university, but from you, Alex, I mean, come on. So that's negative validation. And what I did is I overcompensated for that by retaking all my exams in the next 4 to 6 months, where I got straight A's, studying really hard. My friend who was in kickboxing club, we were doing a PhD at the University of Reading, and she allowed me to use her office or the library there, which you usually can't get into. So I would study really hard, got straight A's, and a couple of B's. Instead of going to the University of maybe Plymouth or Portsmouth to study law, I decided I got 2 more offers, one at the University of Southampton to study law and another at the University of Bristol to study sociology. So in study sociology, that was all the form of validation, approval seeking, people pleasing. But it really came out in my work life when I would say yes, when I really wanted to say no. But I didn't have the word no, which is only a 2-letter word and a full sentence, in my vocabulary. So if someone would ask me to do something, I couldn't say no. And at PwC, corporate life, I took on way too many projects, 6 or 7 at a time, because I wanted to please people. And that backfired me so badly. I remember one time I was working on a client site, and there was this guy who had just come over to work for PwC. I think he may have come from KPMG from India. And he was meant to be my manager. And this was a terrible client. Everyone knew it was a terrible client and had warned people about it. You know, the client, the finance directors would spend 4 hours a day playing cards in their office and wouldn't speak to the auditors. And I was an auditor. And you know, I was trying to people please and make everyone feel happy and good. And there was this question that I had, and I asked this guy, this Indian guy, was my manager, and he just called me stupid. He actually called me fucking stupid in front of everyone, including this like 21-year-old boy. I shouldn't say boy, a guy who was there. You know what I mean? Really embarrassed me. You know what I mean? I just wanted to make people be happy and please people. So I was like, fuck this, and I just like acted out. I took the next 2 or 3 days off work sick because I couldn't handle it. I didn't know how to stand up to myself. I didn't know how to set boundaries, and there's no wonder at PwC I suffered from my first experience of burnout because I tried to make everyone happy and please people. I couldn't set boundaries. I couldn't say no. And it was only years later I unpacked all of this through various means and methods, and we can talk about that maybe. But that's basically people pleasing and validation seeking in a nutshell for you.
Perfect. And touched on this a bit, but just for completeness, why at its heart, why do you think people pleasing contributes to burnout? And you have already kind of looked at this, but for someone else who might not realize that it's a big issue or that it has these negative consequences, why do you think it's so important, if we're talking about burnout, to recognize people pleasing as an issue?
Yeah, because you're constantly and consistently saying yes instead of no. And you think that by saying yes, people will like you and respect you and love you, etc., etc., etc. The inverse or the opposite is true. Saying no makes people like you and respect you, and eventually, if you want that, love you, but in a professional environment, respect you, and then therefore treat you well, treat you professionally, treat you with courtesy. They're not going to shove so much work in your plate. And I remember, I'm going to go back to PwC again. There was a cohort of 50 of us who joined graduate students in the Bristol office. And many of them, I'm not going to say any of their names, but I remember 3 in particular, would like say yes to everything, work 18 hours a day, like talk about hustle and hard work and all of that kind of stuff. And we're people pleasing perfectionists. You know what I mean? None of them work in the office anymore. None of them work at PwC. I think one of them like actually sailed a boat across the Atlantic or something like that, which is brilliant and wonderful. However, like all of this stuff that's ingrained within us and was ingrained in me at the age of an early age, and especially 24 or 23 when I joined the PwC office, work hard, say yes, do your job, blah, 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 tie your shoelaces, iron your shirt, blah, 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 all of this kind of stuff leads to burnout because you eventually crack under the pressure. It may not be a big crack. The cracks are small at first, and the small cracks will get wider and wider and wider over time. You know what I mean? And eventually all this will leak out in repressed anger, rage, sadness, depression, acting out behaviors. And I've seen people, and I've worked with people who cut themselves, who drink, who smoke, who take various drugs. And it's my duty and my job to listen to them and help them get off those behaviors of cutting themselves, drinking, drug taking, etc. You know, I've worked with many people who do that. I don't judge them. You know, it's completely non-judgmental. We keep their anonymity and confidentiality. But this is the result of people pleasing and certain corporate behaviors, not just corporate, it's other companies and organizations and institutions as well, that tell us you have to say yes when the most important word to say is no.
Yep. Thank you, Alex. That was a very comprehensive, great answer. And I suppose the next sort of logical question when we're talking about people pleasing is, how can we overcome it? How can people overcome people pleasing?
Yeah, so then the first step is awareness of the fact that you are doing it and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a moral thing. It's not a judgment or anything. There's nothing wrong about people pleasing. Just to be aware of, oh yeah, I actually say yes sometimes, but I really want to say no. And when you're aware of it, then you can accept it. That's the first A. Number 1 is awareness. Second number A is acceptance. Third A is action. Fourth A is adherence. So I'll speak about that in detail. You have awareness. You can accept it. It's like, I'm a people pleaser. Yeah, and sometimes I even say to myself, I'm people pleasing pussy. You know what I mean? Because I've rolled over and I let people do whatever they want to me. You know what I mean? Tell me to jump, and I'll just ask you how high. So it's like awareness and acceptance, and then you've accepted something. You can laugh about it. You know, you can joke about it. Like I say, I'm people pleasing pussy. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that derogatively to shame myself. I'm just saying that because, yeah, I'm laughing at myself. So you go to move into a state of acceptance, and when you move up the levels of consciousness, from fear, shame, anger, and Dr. David R. Hawkins talks about this. I won't go in detail now. You can look it up yourself in any of his books. He has in the appendix scale of consciousness. You move up from shame, fear, anger, pride into acceptance, and pride is a big one. You know what I mean? You move into acceptance. What that means is you can let it go, and then you can take action. In order to take action, you have to have courage. And courage is vital for taking action. You have to have a sufficient degree of courage in order to say the word no. And you don't need to say anything else other than no. Someone asks you to do something that is outside your scope, your comfort zone. You're working 10 hours a day already, and they're asking, can you commit to 2 more hours of work on this project? No. Without any fear or fear of backlash that they're going to belittle you or fire you or manipulate you, you say the word no. No is a full sentence and is a 2-letter word, and you can say no, and if they continue to ask, you can justify that. But you could also come up with these self-care boundaries for yourself, and we do that in 6-figure and 7-figure self-care routines that we talk about in my coaching and the accountability groups. I'm talking about that next week on Monday. You can download a PDF on it, or you can read about it in the books coming out January 2024. The 2 books, Bipolar Badass and Burnout Bounce Back, or the book coming out in 2025, 7-figure self-care. We're going to have more about boundary setting. So that's action, and it's important to define for yourself what are your self-care routines. What does 6-figure self-care look like for you? For me, that means long walks, meditation, going to the spa, petting my cat, spending time with my fiance Chris, traveling, this kind of stuff, and many more things. Also, I limit myself to maximum 20 hours a week of work. And some people think, how the hell can you build a business with 20 hours a week of work? Especially like a 7-figure a year business. It's all about hustle and grind and this kind of stuff. Well, that's an old paradigm, popular 10 years ago, and people spoke about the hustle and grind thing. Nowadays, we have more compassion, self-care, and love. And I think this is partially, if not largely, due to the pandemic that we all went through. Work from home is now a thing. And I worked hybrid for pretty much all my adult working life from the age of 23. So defining that 6- and 7-figure self-care for yourself. How many hours a week are you going to work maximum? How much rest time are you going to make? And I'll talk about this on Monday in the PDF you can download, and I'll post a link to it in the comments. That you should define your rest time before you define your work time. This is what billionaires do and top executives who I work with. They define for themselves at the beginning of the year, the beginning of the month, the beginning of the week, and beginning of the day, what's their rest time, when they're going to take their annual vacations and holidays, when they're going to take their daily breaks for coffee or schmoozing or whatever it is they want to do. So define that before you define your work time. Set a maximum number. For me, that's 20 hours a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday. I don't work at all on Friday except for doing a 1-hour LinkedIn live, which tomorrow is going to be with Turio, great guy. Those are just some actions you can take. But then the 4th A, and probably the most important A, is adherence. Adherence means doing that consistently. So it's when someone says you have to defend, every single yes with 10,000 no's. So it's not enough to say no once. You have to continuously say no, especially for those annoying people. One of them is my own dad, who is so stubborn and inconsiderate. And there's nothing wrong with him. I love him, you know what I mean? But he just has his own opinions, and he's very opinionated. Say the word no 10,000 times. You have to block your time, block your yeses, reserve your yeses only for those things that you truly care about and value about. So it's adherence to things like the 6- and 7-figure self-care routine, the maximum hours a week that you're going to work, all of these kind of things. And then you will start to see people-pleasing validation fall away from your life. You won't experience burnout. And if you have experienced burnout by prioritizing self-care and the word no, you will have more time with your friends, more time with your family, more time with your hobbies, and you'll live a life beyond your wildest dreams. Dorothy, if there's any questions, let me know. If not, someone can comment in the chat. So we've got like a couple, quite a few people watching, actually, really a lot of people, and loads of people have reacted to it. So anyone can write a comment, Dorothy, or read out about Dorothy. Have you got anything else?
Yeah, I suppose just for anyone listening who's concerned about if they're maybe in a more hierarchical role or hierarchical job, they might be concerned that the end of people pleasing might be the end of doing well. They might get negative backlash at work. I just wondered if you could kind of break down whether you think being a good employee is compatible with an end to people pleasing, or whether in order to be a good employee you're going to have to at some point adopt these character traits of people pleasing.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. I'm going to throw that back around to you now, Dorothy, just a bit, so we can have a bit of fun with it here. Firstly, by being a good employee, what exactly are you getting at?
I suppose meeting your targets,
Mm-hmm.
but being well reviewed and well appraised when it comes to midterm or long-term appraisals, validation and being kind of esteemed as an employee.
Yeah, and we're talking about like individual contributors, like the employees or the managers, or basically anyone below C-suite. What do you think?
I suppose anyone in the chain, in the employee chain, who has a boss who's accountable to someone.
I suppose that everyone is accountable, right from the C-suite down to the office cleaner. You know what I mean? C-suite are often accountable to their investors and shareholders. You know what I mean? And they have to hit certain targets. And work a lot with C-suite and senior executives. And Dorothy, you and I were actually speaking last week of a group of 7 people, our so-called board of advisors or so. And they suggested, talking to more like senior managers and directors, people from C3 to C4. So we're expanding our scope and reaching out to these people now. And if anyone is a senior manager or director and wants to hear more, feel free to, you can feel free to, write to me. We'll set up a meeting with me. I'm just going to put my meeting link in the chat now. But, senior executives, anyone more than welcome. We can talk about this. But Dorothy, to your point, what you were saying about being a good employee, wherever you are in the chain or the hierarchy, you know what I mean? It's like, what is the word good? What does it actually mean? I'm hyper crazy analytical, and I'm sure a lot of people are. Not a lot of people, but like a lot of people with bipolar are, let's say that. Hyper crazy analytical. And when I think of the word good, it sounds to me like a very, what I call moralistic, dualistic term. We live in the world of opposites. That's what I mean by dualism. Good and bad, positive, negative. You know what I mean? Light and dark. I mean, we construct that, and it helps us to a large degree. That's to systematize things, categorize things. So the word good, you first of all have to think to yourself, well, what is good anyway? You know what I mean? Do you want to be a hardworking employee? That's a great thing to be a hardworking employee, I suppose. It's very virtuous, but it can have a backlash. You know what I mean? If you work too hard and do 18-hour days, 6 or 7 days a week, do you want to, as you said, meet your reviews? Your monthly, quarterly, annual reviews, hit the KPIs, get a good bonus and commission for yourself, so you can take the family on a sailing trip to Turkey, or just do it to make money for the company or whatever. I've worked for the last 12 years with a lot of salespeople as a sales trainer at big companies like Meta and HiBob. I've helped salespeople meet their targets. You know what I mean? So maybe that's what you mean by good employee. If that's what you want to do, fair enough. It's about achieving that. How are you going to get from where you are now, A, to where you want to be, B, and measure that with like KPIs and metrics. We do that on our 3-month, 90-day program. We start with the first thing that we do, even before the first coaching call, is we define the metrics and the measurements. What is recovery for you? It's tailored to every individual, and then we measure this on a scale of 0 to 10 every 30 days. And then we look for measurable improvements. It's the same thing in work. You know what I mean? You have to have KPIs. Like one of my favorite managers, not my favorite manager of all time, a woman called Yaron. She managed me. She was my global sales enablement director at Meta. Every single objective that we had was measured using the Kirkpatrick model, which is 4 levels of evaluation used for training effectiveness. The first one is reaction. Second one is learning. Third one is results. And fourth, and most important, and the most difficult to measure, behavioral change. And she's there with every single member of her team. We're a team of like 7 that expanded or so. And then she went to go on to direct an even larger team of people. And she's now working at a different company, probably still using the Kirkpatrick model. But this is all about measurement. You know what I mean? What KPIs are you setting for yourself? You don't need to just wait for a manager to set them for you. Set them for yourself. What are the measurable metrics? As Peter Drucker says, famous CEO of General Electric, what gets measured gets managed. You know what I mean? So you can use that to manage your health, your wealth, your well-being, your work, all these kind of things. And then you can be the so-called good employee that you've defined for yourself. So we're kind of up on time now, Dorothy. Is there anything else, or should we head over to Instagram?
We'll head over to Instagram now, Alex.
Instagram. So yeah, I just want to thank you, Dorothy, for all your questions. It's been a brilliant, beautiful conversation. Thanks to the dozen or so people who watched us and the half dozen or so people who reacted to it. Yeah, on mainly Facebook, actually, predominantly Facebook. The thing about StreamYard, you can't see the people reacting this on LinkedIn. So if there's anyone out there on LinkedIn watching this, hello. See you on Instagram. Dorothy, I might see you there. Last week it didn't work. We did a test earlier today. Still didn't work. So I might be flying solo talking about people pleasing. Just remember the word no, two-letter word no, is a full sentence. And I wish all of you a beautiful, blessed, prosperous rest of the week. Thank you.